you think of Perry stepping in there and
he can't talk either, man.
Well, yeah, but he could be the candidate.
He could be.
Yeah, I think right now it's between him and Romney.
Yeah.
But, so he could be the candidate because other than what he might say from time to time, the fact is he's the governor of Texas, so he brings political clout with him.
Right.
So, that has nothing to do with whether he'd be a good president, what his competence is. But he is a viable candidate from day one, which is why, just by announcing, he's all of a sudden near the top of the polls.
Yeah. The polls are really favoring him now.
How conservative is he compared to Romney?
Oh, he's more conservative than Romney.
Oh, is he?
Yeah. Well, Romney's not conservative. He's got to play conservative now because he's trying to get the Republican nomination. But it's his health care bill in Massachusetts, which has become what they now call Obamacare, and he's trying to distance himself from that,
Romney
which
care.
is absurd. It's the same.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. And why he's running from it is crazy because the fact is Massachusetts is the one state where they have almost universal health insurance. I mean, that's amazing. Virtually everybody in Massachusetts has health insurance because of that. Why is that a bad thing? Why aren't we celebrating it? And Massachusetts has much less unemployment than Texas.
Then why did Ted leave Massachusetts to have his brain cancer treated? Just wondering if it's such good health care.
Oh, boy. Oh, God. Oh, my God.
Where did that come from?
I'm just because I don't agree with universal health care.
But I mean, why Ted, though?
Well, first of all, they had their own private insurance, so they didn't need that.
That's always good.
Well,
isn't that great when Congress can just do whatever they want and talk about how great it is for the people that they come up with this stuff? Well, but then their set of rules are totally different. I love that part.
I don't mind that as long as they make sure everyone else has health insurance. See, that's what was great about Kennedy. They could afford everything, but they recognize that millions and millions of Americans cannot afford health insurance. And, lower income people or middle income people love their children as much as rich people do. So they ought to be able to get health insurance as well. And so I think it's wonderful that everyone has health insurance. I mean, why? If you love America, how can you not love the idea that everyone should be able to take care of their family?
Ideologically, it sounds great. Financially, it's a boondoggle. It's a disaster because the government has never been able to run a program and have it work and be profitable and not have so much
be profitable. Social Security.
I don't mean
your
profitable.
grandparents or parents don't like Social Security. My gosh, Social Security is run by the government, and since 1933, it's been a saving grace for millions and millions of people.
Right.
Government runs a lot of things that are okay.
Let me give you 20 things that didn't work and don't work financially that the government is in charge of. The government's never been trusted with our money because year after year,
government.
They show. No, unfortunately, we're not. We're not a good representation of the government does not represent the people anymore.
I agree your politicians don't necessarily represent the people. But frankly, I don't mind having a national defense. I don't mind having government make sure that when we go to restaurants, the food is clean.
Sure.
I don't mind government coming when there's a fire at my home.
When should they then step out of your ass, though, and perhaps...
I want government to provide services that people can't provide for themselves. That's what government should do. I don't know why we've suddenly hate everything that, for example, this is what you hear politicians now saying. Everybody's saying it. Government doesn't create jobs. Okay? Let me tell you something. Every single penny that the government spends is to employ somebody. Mm-hmm. So when you say you want jobs and government doesn't provide jobs, every penny that the government spend is employing someone. It may be someone in the defense industry. It may be a police officer. It may be a teacher. Mm-hmm. But every single penny is to employ people. So why don't we get off this notion that the government doesn't provide jobs? You know what? If you did away with all the jobs that a tax dollar is paying, you would have millions and millions and millions of more people not employed. It's crazy.
When do you think, Jerry raised a good point, too, about how we think that everything in the government is bad. And I've been wondering this. When did everything with government become negative in the public? Because we trust nobody. I mean, was it the Kennedy assassination? Or what happened where everybody in the government is seen as untrustworthy.
Well, Watergate didn't help. But
I'm sure that was a big
It's
part
a
of Vietnam.
confluence of behavior as well as the rise of the media and the fact that it's 24/7. And the fact is we now know more things about people than we ever did before. So it's not just government. All institutions are now less credible because we realize that all these heroes that we've set up were set up in an age where you really didn't see the blemishes. There was no one to report on them. Right. So everyone loved the president. Everyone loved their priest. Everybody loved the head of the corporation. Yeah. Oh, he's a good man. He's the head of the company and all that. But nowadays, you know everything about everybody.
Dirty little secrets.
So therefore, everyone looks as if they have clay feet, which is the truth. So we all are mortal.
We're disappointed that we realize that they really are just as awful as we are. And it's kind of a letdown when we realize that the individuals that we kind of idolize.
You were ahead of your time there, Jerry. You were ahead of your time.
Well, I certainly had that in mind. I wanted to show what clay feet really were like. Follow me.
What does that mean, clay feet? I've never heard that.
It's it's
like
put them up on
Cassius Clay or something.
Statue, and then they just topple over because they
can't really move.
They can't live up to your
never heard that.
Standards.
Jerry, who's your guy in this whole race?
Well, I like Obama. He doesn't
for a second term.
Oh yeah. Now he hasn't done everything I want.
That's going to rip his hair out.
No.
Yeah. He hasn't done everything I want. He's not liberal enough for me. And I realize I'm not the mainstream. I'm far more liberal than most Americans. I get that. So then when I get upset with him, it's because I wanted him to push harder on a stimulus. There is no excuse why we don't have everyone working in America. I mean, you could put every construction person back to work tomorrow if you just said, let's fix all the roads, all the school buildings, all the hospitals, everything.
He's been preaching that for a while.
But he doesn't have the votes. And so the question is, in the end, you can't, when you have a Congress that is not of his party and even some Democrats don't go along with him, he can't get the votes. We don't have a dictator here.
What happened before the election? He had votes. He got the votes.
No,
before
well, when he first came in, the very first 2 years, I agree. The stimulus, because the Congress wouldn't, including Democrats, many Democrats, would not go along with a big enough stimulus bill. The stimulus was passed, but it was too small. It didn't employ enough people.
It isn't only that, Jerry. What I've noticed, and it's a great idea, and it sounds very American to put everybody to work fixing the infrastructure of this country.
We did it after the Depression.
Of course. But after the Depression, I don't think there were 8,000 earmarks and bullshit pork barrel crap connected to these bills where you can't read it and go, that's a wonderful idea. Let me turn the page. There's an awful idea connected to it. Why don't they just, I hate the idea that they can't just have one subject, it's voted on, it's passed, and do that, and now let's move on to something else. Instead of trying to shove in some of these, which I don't like, some of these social programs are atrocious. Just money pits. And yes, rebuild the infrastructure of the U.S., put people back to work. Love that idea. Who wouldn't love that idea?
Well, apparently a lot of people in government don't like
But
the
I
idea.
don't think they like the idea because of what was attached to it. You can't get up there and tell the American people you're not for putting people to work, fixing our infrastructure,
well, here's what
using
happens.
the tax dollars
to
improve your country.
So your local congressperson says, I won't vote for this bill unless part of the bill is to fix this road in my neighborhood or to build this hospital in my district, whatever. Mm-hmm. So everyone says there's a price. Each of these Congress people say there's a price for my vote. And that's why the bills get bloated.
Right. Yep.
But that's in the Constitution in terms of you elect a congressperson. The congressperson wants to get reelected because he or she runs every 2 years. And in order to get reelected, you have to show that you did something for your district. Otherwise, someone will challenge you in the primary and you'll get defeated because the other person running says, if you vote for me, I'll make sure these potholes are fixed. I'll make sure this school gets the extra program it needs or whatever. That's That's the function of democratic politics. It's sloppy, it's fat, it's ugly, etc. But we can't let those things get in the way with the fact that everyone in America needs a job. If you want to have a capitalist system, which we all do, you only have three choices. There are only three ways that people can make money to support their families. They either have a job, they're either on welfare, or they steal. There's no other way to get money. There are only three ways that people can make money to support their families. They either have a job, they're either on welfare, or they steal. There's no other way to get money. You either get paid for doing something, you're on a government welfare, or you steal. We don't want people to steal. Everyone complains about welfare, then you better make sure everyone has a job. And if this idea that the tax cuts are going to make more people get hired, well, wait a second. We've had these Bush tax cuts for the last 8 years. So then how come unemployment keeps going higher and higher and higher?
Well,
you can't claim it's on big taxes because the taxes are lower.
Imagine how horrid it would be without them. We'd have more unemployment. That's what I say.
We'd hire these people. I'm saying hire them.
Yes.
I am saying hire the people to fix the roads, to build the buildings, to do the infrastructure. You've got 1 million construction workers you could hire right away to start fixing everything we complain about. So why don't we do it? Because right now everyone prays upon the altar of no new taxes. Not for middle class, for people like me. How you we almost yes.
I think
why in the world did you stop we almost didn't raise the debt ceiling. In other words, we almost had America not be able to pay its obligations simply because the Republicans refused to vote for a tax increase for people that are in the top 2% income level.
Because they have told their constituency they were not going to vote for a tax increase. They didn't. So their crime is not lying to their constituency. Wow, what a bunch of assholes.
No, they should have told the truth that this country can't make it unless wealthier people pay a little bit more.
Here's the deal.
It's okay if we pay a
money.
little bit more.
You make good money there,
yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
You hire people around your private life. You're a corporation.
I'm not a corporation. I'm not a corporation. Okay.
I hire people. When my taxes go up, I will absolutely hire less people
to
so do my
untrue.
work.
See,
it is not
no,
so
wait,
untrue.
Here's what happens. You give these major corporations, what is this? General Electric is sitting on hundreds of millions of dollars in cash. Every business in America does everything it can to hire as few people as possible, as low a wage as possible, that they'll still take the job. Every business has to show a profit. The way you show a profit is by cutting expenses. And you cut expenses either by getting a machine to take the place of a person, get the person to agree to work for less wage, or to send the jobs overseas where you can hire people for less. The whole incentive of our system is to employ as few people as possible. That's what the discrepancy in what we're all talking about here.
I don't think the whole goal is to employ as few people as
you
possible.
You think the company who do you work for is Sirius? You think Sirius
is
going
happening
on
here, Ed.
No,
Yes.
but they're not cutting people here. What,
they're
you
cutting
crazy?
people,
the goal
no
is to
raises.
make money. The goal is to make money.
Right, but that means employing less people, and so regular people suffer.
Until it gets to the point where you can make more money by hiring more people and not have unions shaking you.
They're not taking the profit to hire more people. They're taking the profit so you get a bigger return on the people that are investing in stocks or whatever. That's what they're doing. They want to show a bigger profit.
I try to tell him that, and he doesn't believe me.
So if you want Jimmy, I'm going to smack you.
Let's get the head of Sirius on the phone now and saying if he's willing to go or she is willing to go and hire more people.
He doesn't know who we are.
He'd be like, who? Opie and what?
Yeah, he makes a good point by pushing, in our face with the SiriusXM thing. No one has had raises around here, and they have cut a shitload of people.
Of course, every business does. The company that owns me cuts people. Everybody's cutting
what's the
people.
solution?
Why do we think?
It looks like there's no real solution to this whole thing, though.
There is.
What is your solution, sir?
My solution is, first of all, people that are very wealthy, the people in the very top ought to be willing to pay more in taxes. We then use revenue bonds to build things in America that need building. So you put all those people back to work. Now that the people are working, they pay taxes. So the revenue bonds are paid for by people that are now working and paying taxes. That is how we have done it over time.
So why don't you agree with the entire country paying taxes, a nice flat tax? Everyone, if someone makes $1 friggin' dollar, they got to pay 17 cents on it.
The reason is, I'll give you an
wrong with
answer.
that? Okay.
The reason is because the first $25,000 you make is for survival. That is money that you use to buy food, to pay your rent, to pay the electric bill, etc. So if, for example, if you say a flat tax, let's say 10%, everyone pays 10%. That sounds fair. It isn't fair. I'll tell you why. Because 10% of a person that makes $25,000 is $2,500. That $2,500 is very important money to the person that's only making $25,000 because they need that in order to be able to eat. Then you go to someone who makes $20 million, 10% is $2 million. Sounds like a lot of money. But that person is left with $18 million. So that person has no sacrifice at all. Nothing in that person's life is changed. And so that's what's not fair. The burden has to be equal. There's nothing fair about...
Jerry, it says the pursuit of happiness. There's no guarantee in this country that says that you're absolutely going to be taken care of. You're given an opportunity, and I think people are
You think we have equal
villains.
opportunity? We all have it. Do you think that someone born in the inner city in a single family, the one parent that exists isn't working?
You mean like Obama that became the president?
Okay. You take Obama versus the millions of people that live in poverty. You're saying that for example, take me, that I started out the same way that person did.
Maybe not in your time, and I'm not making a joke, but things have changed drastically over the past few years.
If you think someone born into a wealthy family is facing, assuming the health is the same, has the same hurdles that someone that is born in abject poverty.
No, you're going one extreme and the other.
But there are millions of people in poverty, or millions of people that aren't born into wealthy families, that are struggling, that even get a college education and can't find a job. These people have it tough.
In a capitalistic society, there's always going to be the very poor and very rich. But the middle ground is where the bulk of our people are.
And they can't afford to send their kids to college anymore. By the way, I hope everyone watches baggage.
Speaking of things you carry to college, bags.
Baggage is on GSN.
We
it's
really
on
are getting
GSN every day. It's on GSN every day at 7:30 in the evening. So
do you think Reagan was a good president or no?
I think Reagan was a good president. He was too conservative for me, but I think he was a good president, yeah.
Did he?
Not a great one, but a good one.
My friend and I, a guy who's coming in after you leave, a comedian, we had a big screaming match because you were saying Reagan didn't care about poor people at all. The AIDS argument, I didn't...
Get ready yet.
But no, Keith was saying, he's saying Reagan didn't give a shit about poor people.
Yeah.
Well, that gets too personal. In other words, I don't think these people go home and say... Oh, I don't care about if poor people die or starve to death. So it's not that.
It's funny.
And actually says that on the radio.
Jesus.
But I do think there is a political point of view. You know, there's a reason why most wealthy people are Republican. There's a reason. And it's not because they're bad people, but because wealthy people can mostly afford things, at least in their own mind, by themselves. They don't need the public school. They can afford a private school. They don't need the public health clinic because they can afford their own doctors. They don't need the public schools because they afford the private schools, as I said. They can afford their own homes, their own transportation, their own recreation. So therefore, since they don't see themselves as getting a lot from the government, they then start having lack of sensitivity. Why should I pay taxes? I don't use any of those services. Without looking at the bigger picture, that the reason we have a wonderful country is, and they have their wonderful lives is because we have a wonderful country where everyone before them pitched in.
Do you realize, though, there's a lot of people that have money, I'll include myself in this, that pay a lot of taxes and don't want to pay more taxes. I feel I'm doing my part. And then to be told that I'm not patriotic, I'm not doing enough, when every quarter I am writing unbelievable checks. I pay for a school system, which I understand. I want to live in a nice neighborhood. It's going to cost me. But I write that check and I pay a lot of taxes. And then to be told that I'm not doing enough really is kind of a slap in the face. And I haven't always had money, Jerry, believe it or not.
Yeah.
To look at me, you'd think, I've been rich my whole
He's
life.
blue blood.
But,
Boy, you and me,
let me
fools.
tell you. So to achieve something in life, in this country, and then to be told you're not doing enough makes people very resentful. I'm not talking about the faceless corporation that is not paying any taxes, getting refunds after billions of dollars of revenue. I'm just saying the guy that is making $250,000, even more than that would fall into that category, gets very resentful being told he's not doing enough when every day you're being told to do more and do more. That's
Okay.
where I get.
And my answer is first of all, I don't know that every day they're being told do more.
I
Here's
see
what
it.
I'm saying. It's interesting. This discussion never came up when we invaded Iraq. This discussion never came up when we went into Afghanistan. It is amazing. You never talk about money when we start to fight a war. You never, when 9/11, horrible. There wasn't one of us here in America that said, how much is it going to cost to go and get the Taliban, to go and get Osama bin Laden?
Exactly.
No one asked a penny. And yet, here's the reality. Let's say 1/100th of 1%, not 100th, 1/1,000,000th of 1% of all Americans will ultimately meet their end by happening to be in a building that gets hit by a plane. 1/1,000,000th of 1% of us will leave this planet because of that horrible event. 99.9% of us will leave this planet because of a disease or an accident. So we know in the end that disease or accident is what is going to kill us and our loved ones. We know that's the enemy. And yet, we get so resentful if we are going to spend money to make sure that all Americans are in a position to at least fight off disease. If you love America, you wouldn't worry if someone that you don't even know gets killed in a building that gets hit by a plane. You are fine to spend that money. Thank you for being a good humanitarian and doing that. I think we should. But I want that same feeling when someone's dying of cancer, when someone's dying of diabetes. Why are we all of a sudden said, Obamacare, like a snooty kind of thing? You know what? If I am so privileged to live in America and to make a lot of money here in America, if I got to pay a little bit more, you know what? I don't want to live anyplace else. This is the best country in the world. And if my dues get to be a little bit higher, am I going to now starve? Do I now have to sell my house? Do I have to get rid of my child? I mean, this business of whining. I'm not saying that people that are making $30,000 a year, $50,000, $100,000, $150,000 need to spend more. But when people are making millions of dollars a year, do you know I don't pay any more? I don't pay any more in the payroll tax than a person who makes $100,000 a year. I make, let's say several million. Okay, so I make millions, and I don't pay 1 penny more in the payroll tax than someone who earns $100,000 a year. You think that's fair? There's nothing fair about that.
There's also nothing fair about the other side, too. There's certain things in our tax laws that are not fair, I think, both ways. And again, I just don't like the fact that 50% of the country isn't paying taxes. I don't like the fact that the top 10% pay 90% of the 99% of the taxes. But I do like your point.
You
does
can
make
allow
a
him
great
to
point on
just
that.
have that moment.
No, he made it.
That was an amazing moment right there.
He made a great point.
That
but
was
he
an
tagged it
amazing
with
moment.
liberal shit.